For more than 25 years, I've promoted the Hudson Valley Renegades. But you know who were the first Renegades? The founders who fought for our independence.
That's right, Zoles. This is County Executive Mark Molinaro, and we'll celebrate those original Renegades on July 4th when Dutchess goes Renegade. We're proud to partner with the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, Silo Ridge Field Club, iHeartMedia of the Hudson Valley, Central Hudson Gas and Electric, and your very own Renegades to present 3 fireworks displays across Dutchess County. Join us at Dutchess Stadium in Fishkill, the Dutchess County Fairgrounds in Rhinebeck, and the Silo Ridge Equestrian Center in Amenia for a nighttime spectacular that will light up the sky. Gates open at 7:30 p.m. and fireworks begin at 9:30. Parking is limited, so arrive early.
Our friends at iHeartMedia of the Hudson Valley will pump out the patriotic music and broadcast the events across its family of stations. I can't wait to see everyone on Independence Day to celebrate our community and our country. You know, it's been too long, Mark. I've missed you, buddy.
I've missed you too, Zoles, but I know I'll see you on July 4th when Dutchess goes Renegade. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. Today's Wednesday, July the 1st. We're actually going to come to you live today, as you can see, 3 o'clock today, and also tomorrow in recognition of the 4th of July and the Independence holiday. We decided to come to you one day early, expecting that you might have something to do, and I know others may have something to do on the 3rd of July. That said, today is Bobby Bonilla Day, very important to Mets fans. It's a reminder that the Mets still just can't get their act together, although this year we have had so far the best start of a season yet. No losses. It's probably a good place to start. Sadly, as you may know, first, Major League Baseball has come to a deal. Owners, players, and league, they're engaging in, I think, a 60-game season. However, because of the truncated nature of the Major League season and the inability for fans to fill the stands under these current circumstances, minor league baseball has announced no minor league season this year. So what that means, of course, for us is that sadly the Hudson Valley Renegades will not play this summer at Dutchess Stadium. So I know that for many of you that's saddening, maddening, but I don't know that this comes as a shock, but nevertheless, we won't be having baseball at Dutchess Stadium this summer, and for all of us, it's a real loss. But we understand and we carry on. I do want to extend our appreciation to the Hudson Valley Renegades, the Gold Clang ownership organization, and the front and back office at the Hudson Valley Renegades, not only for trying to make it work this season, but for their partnership over the course, certainly these last 26 years, but these last several months, we all have been partnering together. In fact, Dutchess Stadium, as you know, will host one of our fireworks displays this Saturday, and has now for 100 days been hosting one of our test sites. So just as a reminder, this Saturday, Dutchess goes Renegade. We are partnering with the Hudson Valley Renegades, Central Hudson Gas and Electric, iHeartMedia, Eastdale Village, the Neshawat family, and others to bring 3 simultaneous fireworks displays. We're celebrating Independence Day in style at 3 locations. Gates open at 7:30 p.m. at Dutchess Stadium. Again, 7:30 p.m. at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds in Rhinebeck on Route 9, and at the Silo Ridge Equestrian Center on Route 22 in the town of Amenia. These are drive-in events only, so we're asking you to stay in or immediately near your vehicle. There are no facilities. Now, part of that is obviously we don't want people congregating, but the other, quite frankly, is we just didn't want to be in a position where one, we were encouraging the people to congregate, and two, from a purely financial perspective as well, it just didn't make a heck of a lot of sense. So we do recognize that that's something you've got to plan for. Carry in, carry out, no alcohol. So if you want to bring snacks and drinks, although, again, no facilities to speak of, if you want to bring snacks and limited drinks, you're certainly welcome to do that. Fireworks will shoot off at 9:30 p.m. We'll be partnering with a number of local organizations who will help with traffic control and parking. I want to thank the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Butch Anderson and his staff for helping us with security on site. and we're obviously going to encourage physical distancing. And remember, as you can, we're asking that you continue to make use of face coverings. So that's July the 4th, fireworks at 9:30 p.m., gates open at 7:30 p.m. at those locations. Now, also at Dutchess Stadium these last 100-plus days has been one of our public test sites. As you know, one of the biggest challenges, and quite frankly, one of the largest weaknesses nationwide, was propping up and making available test sites to conduct COVID-19 related tests. Now, Dutchess County partnered with Nuvance Healthcare to provide a public site at Dutchess Stadium. We partnered with Ulster County and Nuvance to have one site in Dutchess County, Dutchess Stadium, one site in Ulster County, and we have, in the meantime, broadened access to testing all throughout really the county. So you can access testing now at a pharmacy, Rite Aid certainly, I think CVS and some others. Certainly your doctor's office, you can reach out and be tested if you need it. And because of the nature and now the broad access to testing, Nuvance has, in partnership with us, decided that we are going to close the Dutchess Stadium site. The Ulster site is closed. The Dutchess Stadium site will close tomorrow, July the 2nd. That does not mean we won't have access to testing. There is actually significant testing. You are talking to, or we embrace the need for access to testing. So you will be able to continue to get tests as you need them at a doctor's office by contacting your physician first. A number of pharmacies throughout the county provide drive-up testing. Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital, Westchester Medical Partnership, Medical Network, providing tests. Pulse MD providing testing. And if you have any questions regarding accessing testing or when you may need to be tested, visit dutchessny.gov/coronavirus testing, or just dutchessny.gov, and you can find your way to the testing information. So we're grateful to Nuvance. We're grateful to the Medical Reserve Corps, who has assisted, the Dutchess County Department of Public Works, the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, who has helped us to keep that site open. And over the course of these last 100-plus days, we've actually conducted nearly 60,000 tests, which is a good time to transition back to where we are with some of the data points. So over these 100-plus days, we've conducted 59,637 tests with a total of 4,207 confirmed positive cases. Now, as we've talked all along these last several weeks, we've seen steady decline. I will say active cases have pretty much leveled off. They may decline a little bit further, but we are obviously had been seeing a steady decline in active cases, those that we still have to monitor. We have 180 of those as of today. Individuals are identified as recovered after a period of time, and of course will come off of that active list. But every day we are seeing several new cases. I think we're at about 1% in transmission rate, so that's the number we want to be at as a region. And as you know, sadly, over the course of these 4 months, we have seen 151 individuals succumb to the disease. If you have a question, write it in the comment section below the live feed. Before we get to those, and I'll get to them very quickly, let me just update you that at the moment we are still in Phase 3. The state of New York has these phases. We're in Phase 3. For clarification, New York City is not in Phase 3. New York City is in Phase 2. And the Hudson Valley and Long Island are a day apart in their phases. So we are on track to move to Phase 4 on Tuesday, July the 7th. This is the state determination. Phase 4 does include expansion of access to tourism destinations and businesses like that. As of today, Phase 4 guidance does not include malls, gyms, theaters, or amusement parks. We have been advised that there should, in fairness, we've been advised there should have been guidance on malls, theaters, and amusement parks by now. We are waiting. We have not yet begun Phase 4. Those businesses again, as we had been discussing, come into play in the Phase 4 time period. That has not happened yet. The state has not issued Phase 4 guidance for malls, theaters, or gyms. There are counties upstate that have already begun Phase 4. We are not there yet. We're scheduled to begin on on Tuesday, July 7th. The state has said for malls there is some vague guidance, although not specific yet, that malls that make use of particular HVAC filters would meet the concerns that apparently the state has regarding mall settings. I won't offer an opinion other than to tell you that we believe that malls can function not as they always have, and I think this is important. Yes, historically malls were sort of almost places of community. People would kind of come together, you mall around, you visit some stores. We recognize that cannot happen under the current circumstances, but there is a way to make malls accessible either by appointment for in particular salons and businesses of that type, or to ensure that it is simply a low capacity issue. You're in, you're shopping, you leave. The problem is that there are a number of small businesses that take up space in the mall but don't have access to an exterior entrance. So if you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you're open right now because even though you're attached to the mall, you paid to have a door that exits out into a parking lot. Now, of course, C&C Salon can't afford to do that, so they're 20 feet from the mall entrance but can't open because they don't have a dedicated exterior door. So we've asked for businesses like that, perhaps, and this is what we do all the time. There is a way to corral people to move to those locations, but again, those guidances are not yet with us. To clarify, to be very, very clear, the governor announced today that inside dining in New York City would not commence when New York City moves to Phase 3, that they have serious concerns about enforcement. I would say to you that I share those concerns. If you've seen photographs or activities in New York City, there just needs to be a greater adherence and consideration for the need to physically distance when possible, to wear face coverings, and to limit occupancy in restaurants. We've seen in other states where there has been an increase, the super spreader locations, these locations or venues that we have seen transmission of the disease ramp up, have been in settings like that, close proximity, indoors, where people are interacting and socializing in a way that just right now we just can't necessarily embrace. So that does not affect Dutchess County or the Mid-Hudson region, but it does mean that indoor dining in New York City will be postponed in the immediacy. So if you're looking to go out to dinner in New York City, we'd prefer if you just stayed home and did that here in Dutchess County, any one of your neighborhood restaurants. And, of course, we still have been working with towns, villages, and cities, and you'll see it with local businesses to create outdoor dining opportunities. Those are still open and available. Jenny is asking when she can take her son home for a visit from his residential school. That is a fine question. If it's a facility that's operated by the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities or supported by OPWDD, this is still undetermined. The state hasn't made that very clear. There are guidances that can be put in place. I do think that, as you know, we've made this an important issue. Visitation can commence. Taking individuals home still are limited, and organizations, the residents themselves, can make some of those decisions, but the state still has not come forward with the clearest direction. Patricia's asking about any updates on wedding venues. The short answer is not yet. We expect to have some guidance or some discussion about the issue today. It's actually one of the reasons I will check my phone a couple times. So we're expecting to have that. Hold on one second. That's not true. Okay. I'm actually waiting for an update. So to the question of wedding venues, we don't yet have that answer. It was expected that we would have guidance before entering Phase 4. That has not happened yet. We were told that issue might be addressed today or tomorrow in one of our regional control room calls, and we'll keep you updated on that. But as far as full venues, not yet. No guidance yet. Although I do want to remind you of the court injunction that occurred several days ago. Federal court did decide that the state could not establish a capacity restriction on religious activities that was more stringent, stricter than that which was in effect for other businesses. So, for religious activities, we've explained this to the faith community. We had a call with churches and houses of worship and faith leaders earlier this week. The current standard for inside, based on the court injunction, the federal court decision, is 50% capacity. So indoor houses of worship can now operate at 50% capacity. And then secondly, and this is some clarification we're trying to get, outdoor gatherings will increase, generally speaking, to 50 people. However, the court injunction does suggest that for religious activities, outdoor events, for religious events, can now move to the same limits that are established for other categories. So at the moment, we're saying 150 people. However, it is possible that the court injunction says for organized outdoor activities, there is no cap, and I want to get you that updated information. But as of this moment, if you are having a religious event, we are saying outdoor activities, religious activities should mirror the caps on the other social gatherings, which currently the highest number is 150. And I don't mean to do this, but I'm hoping to get some more information as we speak. And it does seem the court order suggests that that it is for outdoor activities, not limited to religious events, but we want to clarify that as we get further along. So Mike's asking update on Ark of Duchess and Ability's first day programming after Phase 4. Well, these decisions can be made by the organizations themselves. There are certain daytime activities that can commence, and we'll work with them. Tony Sharafella, the Deputy Commissioner for Individuals with Developmental Disabilities, is continuing to work with these organizations, and will continue to advise. But some of those activities can proceed now. Some, however, larger capacity cannot. Churches, Lisa, yes, churches now can operate at 50% capacity. Whatever is the least strict guidance on indoor capacity for any business is to be the same for a religious institution because of the constitutional rights protected, the constitutional right to exercise one's religion. However, the safety provision of 50%, which exists for restaurants and businesses, is the same cap and is enforceable for religious organizations and religious institutions. So yes, 50% capacity on houses of worship. KT, when will family courts open? We don't know yet. And courts are administered by the New York State Office of Court Administration. There are going to be more court proceedings that occur, but not a full opening just yet, and we'll keep you advised of that, and we'll try to get you some more information, if not tomorrow, by the time we come back together Wednesday of next week. Brenda asked about summer school for students with special needs. School districts are provided the opportunity, the right to provide those services. There are about a dozen, I shouldn't say that, probably about 10 school districts and organizations in Dutchess County that are providing in-person special needs summer school. Some have decided simply not to. That is their right. However, they are permitted to provide those services. So if you have a question regarding summer school opportunities or any services for those with intellectual or developmental disabilities, please visit thinkdifferently.net and reach out to us, thinkdifferently.net. Steve, any updates on opening gyms? The answer is no. The state still has not provided guidance. We are asking for that guidance. We think that it's necessary at least to give some prep time and some indication as to what the expectation is for the state with gyms. And as you know, we've been making this point regularly these last several weeks. But no, the state has not provided yet any update. Updates on yoga studios holding indoor classes. We don't yet. We have actually made that specific request, which is if you can keep the social distancing, limiting the capacity and some of the interaction, could a gym open or a small fitness facility open to provide instruction, yoga instructional classes, I'm trying to CrossFit, things of that nature. And we just don't, the state of New York just has not provided guidance to us as of yet. When will makeup artists be able to start working? That is a fine question. Personal care as it relates to applying to the face is not yet permitted under the guidance, and we'll get you an update from the state of New York. That's not yet permitted as of yet. If there is Brenda's asking if there is an increase in COVID, will you shut places down? First of all, that entire process and the right to make those decisions has been given to the governor. So open or closed is a decision that's been provided. The governor, the New York State Legislature, gave him enormous authority, temporary, they say, to make those determinations as part of the declared state of emergency. But you should expect, just as we saw today in New York City, if there is some indication that we're seeing a ramping up of cases or worse than that, increases in hospitalization, yes, the state of New York is going to take action to slow either reopening or, as other states have done, perhaps even take a step back and sort of shut things down again. The goal here is to recognize the disease is going to exist. We're not vanquishing it. It will transmit from person to person. The goal is to slow that rate of transmission so it doesn't escalate, and to ensure that that severity doesn't grow. And that's been the goal all along, to keep hospitalizations down. And we are fortunate in Dutchess and in this part of the state of New York. Certainly, we have seen a regular and steady decline. We now have 7 individuals hospitalized with COVID in Dutchess County, which is about the lowest we've seen since we started sort of monitoring hospitalizations related to COVID. Our dance studios, Donna, our dance studios considered gyms or fine arts schools? Can they open in phase 4? That's a fine question. There is a distinction between the two. We'll get you a specific answer. At the moment, they've been categorized in the same category as gyms, but we can see certainly if you were to operate a camp or a fine arts related school, they would open in phase 4. Well, camps already, but they could function in phase 4. So I'm going to ask us to try to give you some direction for tomorrow when we come back to you live. If not, we'll try to get an answer before we close up today. Christine's asking, when will we know about schools for next year? I mean, the short answer is soon. The state State Department of Education has been working with school districts. If you're a parent, you'll likely have been surveyed by your school district. Don't criticize the schools. They're being asked to do this to gauge what the public's level of interest is for any variation of school activities. We support students going back to school. We believe that by monitoring high-risk individuals and creating accommodations for those with higher risk or vulnerabilities to the disease, you could still proceed with an in-person school year and then just monitor if any change is necessary from that. So the American Pediatrics Association issued a paper basically articulating that with concern for risk, students going back to in-person school setting should be the place we begin. If we're having any conversation, it'd start with the concept that students go back to school. How would we manage that? And so we're not in a position, county government in New York State doesn't provide education services. It's not our role. That is dictated or granted to school districts, as you know. We'll continue to advise school districts, provide them some guidance, give them some backup and support, but that's going to be a decision that gets made by state ed, the governor, and school districts. I know that I took my survey. My wife and I took our survey in Red Hook. We believe our kids are safe to go back to school in September. We believe that there are those that will have underlying illnesses or vulnerabilities that should be protected, and that steps should be taken to protect those who might be vulnerable to the disease. We'll know more about that, we think, in the next couple of weeks. April, is there a phase 5? No, I'm sorry to say that phase 4 is indefinite. And so what I mean by that is once we move into phase 4, the state isn't saying there's like an end to it. It just ends when we feel that we've reached the ability to kind of protect as many people as possible. That is the state's role and current determination. So it's phase 4 until no more. Now, the governor has said something on television that could frighten some people, and that is that sort of these restrictions will remain into effect. He even said, I think, theaters and malls wouldn't open until there's a vaccine. I don't know that he meant that. I just know that The concept here is that as long as we can maintain a low rate of transmission, there isn't the severity of cases, then you'll see things sort of open up even more. But if that doesn't happen, as we've seen in other states, there will be just sort of a slowing, and we'll be in this phase 4 period for a period of time. But we're, as I said, we're all working to monitor and slow the transition. Deanna, I wish, these are all great questions. I don't have any updates on movie theaters. Again, the state has said there'd be guidance on movie theaters, gyms, and amusement parks. They'd also said there'd be guidance for wedding venues by now. That has not happened. We're hopeful that we do get some additional information. And that guidance comes soon. So no updates on movie theaters, but drive-ins are open. So to the extent that you want to hang out at one of our many drive-ins, please do. Splashdown opening next week? The answer is they can't until the state gives the okay. There is not yet guidance. So originally, the expectation was July 7th. I did have a fairly engaged conversation with representatives from New York State Department of Health. They concur. There is no broad acknowledgement that a chlorine-filled water park is a location where this disease would be transmitted easily. They do have concerns, as we all do, about group settings. But I can tell you they didn't say anything to me that contradicted what we were offering, which was that a water park is likely the least or the lowest risk of amusement kind of activities because of the nature of the park. Ohio has all of their water parks open. Ohio is a good state to monitor. While it doesn't have a single sort of massive metropolis center like we do in New York City, it did take action. The governor of Ohio did take action ahead of New York State. They closed down quickly. They enforced the restrictions. They encouraged the use of face coverings. They are reopening at a pace that has not seen a resurgence of the disease. Their water parks are open. New Jersey and Connecticut will have all of their water parks open, I think today, in fact. And so I understand the desire to see how things go in those places, but again, with no indication that a place like Splashdown would be a high risk, we believe that Splashdown could open. The state of New York just hasn't come forward with any guidance yet, and I know it's devastating for the business, it's devastating for the industry, and we know it's disappointing for many, but at this point, there's just no guidance that's come forward. So we mentioned the Duchess Stadium site. Wanted to be sure that you were prepared for that. As I mentioned, minor league baseball, no season this year for any minor league baseball team, including, of course, our own Hudson Valley Renegades. A couple other things that we wanted to touch base on. Just as a reminder, last week the governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut announced this travel advisory. So again, anyone from states that have been deemed high infection rate locations should self-quarantine for 14 days. If you're watching, and I'm guessing you are, you can see those 16 states on the screen. 16 separate states identified by these three governors as states that if you travel to or from and back here to New York, you are required to self-quarantine for 14 days. And that includes individuals returning from vacations or, as I said, yes, or those who might be traveling from those states here. Please understand that the state of New York is enforcing this rule. The county, if we're notified of an individual or you have a question because you traveled, we'll give you the advice. We will tell you what the rules are. We don't have a structure in county governments to sort of monitor in every one of these situations. But again, if we're notified of an individual who meets those requirements, we are required to advise you that you are required to self-quarantine for 14 days. If you choose not to self-quarantine, the state of New York will issue a mandatory quarantine order, and you are subjected to fines, and that is the state's determination. The first fine is $2,000, the second fine is $5,000, and the third, if you cause any harm, is $10,000. And that's something just to be aware of, and it is a rule that the state of New York is enforcing, and we want you to be aware of that. If you have questions regarding it or any question, just write in the comment section below the live stream, and happy to get you some additional answers as best we can. So let's remind you a couple things. Let me I'll answer a few questions. David's asking about Wilcox Park. Is it open for swimming? It is still open for swimming. We opened it some weeks ago. All of the county parks are open. The water pad at splash pad at Bowdoin Park is open. All county parks are open. Wilcox is open for swimming. The only thing we have to remind folks is the algae bloom. This has nothing to do with COVID. This is just sadly something that lakes like ours experience from time to time. So just do check the website, duchessny.gov, or Facebook for an update if there's a reason to close the swimming, not COVID related, but if there's any reason to close the swimming, we'll post it there. But we are open. Please enjoy. My family and I were out there on Father's Day, and there were a good number of folks making use of the beach. There are some restrictions on physical distancing and capacity. We'd ask you to honor those things. And we are asking when physical distancing cannot be maintained to make use of a face covering. Please, again, unless you have an underlying ailment or disability, we do know that use of a face covering slows the transmission of the disease, and we are asking that you continue to make use of a face covering. Lindsay, how can we find out where the new cases in the county are coming from? Well, every day at the duchessny.gov website, we break down cases by municipality. We don't break them down daily. They're there daily, so you'd have to look at them and see the change in any municipality. They are fairly well distributed. We're only at this point talking about 5 to 10 new cases a day. They're distributed throughout the county. If there was a hot spot, a location that may have seen some increase in cases, that would be known to you. We would make that public. We would discuss that with local municipal leaders, and we would have to take steps to protect individuals if we knew that there was a growing area of concern. To that point, there are now 2 identified hotspots in the Mid-Hudson region, one in Westchester County as a result of graduation or after graduation parties that occurred in Westchester County. And again, a party that occurred, I believe, in the town of Clarkstown in Rockland County. And so we have to monitor those things. And I will tell you that we need you to be sensitive to that. If you feel like if you don't feel well, don't go to a party. Don't socialize with others. If you feel like you have some of the symptoms, please stay home, get a test, call your physician, and take those. Take those steps to provide for safety of others. And if you're interested in deciding to have a social gathering or party, keep it small. Still keep it small. A large social gathering is not a bright idea. Keep in mind, if you invite people to your house or your location and you end up with transmitting the disease, you really put yourself at risk, and of course you put others at risk, and that's just not something that you want to do. So from our perspective, we want very much for you to be safe. We want you to to follow the social distancing requirements and guidances, and we'd ask again that you make use of a face covering. I will say that the Major League Baseball has supplied these. They get distributed. These are actually New York Mets face coverings, and it's probably the closest I'm going to get to wearing a New York Mets uniform. So that's that. But we want you to still wear a face covering for everyone's safety and for your benefit, please. How will the travel restrictions be enforced? A number of ways. Lisa Marie asked that question. The New York State is working with to monitor who may have traveled into the state. They can pull that information and work with the Port Authority. They can work with individuals who may want to issue a complaint. The New York State Department of Health, New York State Police, and their own local health departments are required to respond when we are made aware of these situations. And so based on the executive order, the governor's order, if somebody had traveled, if they come into New York State from one of those 16 states, you should know that somebody if you don't choose to follow that quarantine, somebody may call, right? They might place a registered complaint. They may ask you, and both law enforcement and local health and state health departments are required to respond to advise you what the restrictions are. And so we'll tell you again, it is a voluntary quarantine unless you choose not to participate. If you choose to not adhere to that self-quarantine, then the state of New York, through its health department, would issue fines of up to $10,000 per occurrence. So it's something that you should know. Stephanie is asking when horse shows can start. Stephanie, I wish. I know who you are, and I know the work that you do. As of this moment, no sort of audience-based activities can occur. Horse shows, as they have been traditionally occurring, just no guidance yet offered by the state of New York. So we would expect that those kinds of things could happen during Phase 4, but those instructions just haven't come out yet, and they haven't provided any guidance. Over the course of this entire pandemic, thousands of individuals have come forward to volunteer in a whole host of ways, a number of ways. Through Duchess Responds, we have been providing support to local not-for-profit organizations and individuals all across Dutchess County. And the Dutchess Responds Food Connection, which we launched when we began the response to the pandemic, has delivered over 14,000 meals. So that's 14,000 meals over 14 weeks. The demand has decreased to a degree, but we know that this has been a lifeline for a good number of families, over 600 households, more than 660 inquiries made to our hotline looking for assistance, 14,000 meals over 14 weeks. When you reach out, just want you to be aware that we'll try to, if you are in need, we'll try to connect you with a service provider who can do that. But as of now, of course, the demand for these services are starting to decrease as things sort of reopen. I do want you to let you know, as a reminder, public transit here in Dutchess County is up and running, full up and running. We haven't yet started charging a fare again, so no fare. It's fair. How do you say that so it doesn't sound? We're not charging a fare just yet. That will be reinstated on or around August the 1st, so be prepared for that. But nevertheless, public transit is now up and running, full routes. We want to thank our partnership with Dutchess Outreach, Community Action Partnership, and the Community Foundations of the Hudson Valley for their assistance and their partnership. And if you have access to resources, and if you have some dollars that you may still have that you want to invest or donate, there are a good number of not-for-profit organizations all across Dutchess County, but I would offer to you that Dutchess Outreach and Community Action Partnership have really been working tirelessly these last several weeks in partnership with us and to provide assistance to those in need. And I want to thank the donors that came forward, a good number of residents of the Silo Ridge development in Amenia, and so many others. Hundreds of residents across Dutchess County came forward to donate. I'm very grateful. We are very grateful to all of you, and several of you donated in the memory of my father, and that was very touching, and I'm very grateful for that as well. So if you have a question, just write it in the comment section below. We'll try to get to that as best we can. Is the Balloon Festival still happening? The answer is, as of the moment, there is not a location for the Balloon Fest. I know that the Chamber of Commerce has been looking for an opportunity to host that in some way, but as of right now, there is not yet the location where that could occur. Susie asks, what do I know about the second stimulus check? So I do know this. The Congress is debating as we speak and negotiating another COVID-related bill that may include a stimulus check or some benefit to individuals. That is likely to be clearer to us as we get past the 4th of July holiday, the Independence Day weekend, and closer to the end of July. Congress goes on an ordinary recess in August, so the expectation is that this next COVID-related bill, which we hope will include state and local assistance and some direct benefit and aid to residents and businesses, will occur prior to Congress leaving for session. And so you should reach out to your member of Congress. You should encourage them to support that kind of aid. I will tell you, Dutchess County is facing, as many counties are facing, a multi-million-dollar shortfall that we are attempting to address. and in a number of ways, the loss of sales tax, which represents 41% of Dutchess County's revenue, is a major concern. We're monitoring that daily. We've made some very aggressive decisions early on that have helped us. You know, I often I've laughed the one thing I've had to laugh about is that for years there have been individuals who have criticized the fact that Dutchess County has worked to secure what we refer to as our fund balance. It's our rainy day fund. When I came into office, that was virtually depleted, and we rebuilt it. And because of that fund balance, Dutchess had a very strong fiscal condition, highest bond rating of any county in the state. And that rainy day fund has allowed us to manage cash flow this year. Now, no one could have ever expected that this was the rainy day we were preparing for, but here we are. And that fund balance, despite the fact that there are some who would have spent it time and time again, having that safety net, if you will, has enabled us to sustain significant immediate cuts. Now, that doesn't mean that without aid we can sustain that into the next year. It just means that we provided ourselves the cushion that allowed us to get through several months. It's one of the reasons we didn't initially move forward with a furlough with certain county employees. We just felt that was going to send a shockwave that was unnecessary, and frankly, we wanted to show support to the county employees. And at the end of the day, county employees or government employees that were off on furlough would have went from county taxpayer supported to federal taxpayer supported, and you're all the same taxpayers. So we were cognizant of that, made some early decisions to freeze spending, freeze travel, to slow to a bare minimum the number of capital projects that we would move forward with. And so we've done our best to restrict spending as we work on the development of the 2021 budget. We did announce this week, and we've shared this with county employees, that we have reached agreement with our collective bargaining units, the unions that represent county employees, on a county workforce adjustment incentive. You or I might call that an early retirement or a buyout. So we did this in 2013. It was very successful in closing a future budget, a projected budget gap. We're now in the midst of what is an operating hole, an actual functioning dollar loss that we have operationally. And so this workforce incentive is voluntary. It is meant to provide an opportunity for those individuals who either wish to sever their employment here to retire, or perhaps to move, or to go off to some other potential job opportunity, up to them. Individual employees would volunteer. The incentive includes some benefits toward retirement, some financial benefits. It's actually 3 options that an employee can choose from. And of course, this is meant for us to lessen the total number of cuts that would have to be made if we don't see federal or state assistance moving forward. So this workforce adjustment incentive would provide one of 3 options to county employees. They'll be given an opportunity to sign up. We expect in this case we would approve those early retirement incentives as we are able to hold vacant those positions. So again, simply giving the incentive and then backfilling with someone else doesn't always produce savings. So on a case-by-case basis, the goal here is, if you take the incentive, we're going to hold vacant that position for the year. And what that'll mean in the 2021 budget, as I present it to the legislature later this year, we may not eliminate the full-time job. It may not be pulled out of the total number, but we may fund it at only $1 or keep it vacant so that we're not filling it, we're not spending those dollars, but we're not eliminating the FTE, because right now we think that this is the full-time equivalent job. Because right now we feel that, that this is a momentary economic challenge for us. This is not long-term financially for us, so we want that window. The other is, just as a reminder, it is my obligation under the county charter as the budget officer to present to the county legislature a proposal for spending, and then the legislature considers that and then can make adjustments to it. So our job, and we've been doing this with regular meetings, the budget office working with the county comptroller, Robin Lois, the Department of Finance, and all of our department heads have been looking at ways to restrict spending now, which we're doing, slowing spending now, and looking at ways that we will restrict spending into the 2021 year. But expect, without federal or state assistance, and the state of New York is holding up state aid. Without assistance, there will be significant reductions. There just is not an option otherwise. And to those who would want it isolated to certain areas of county government, what I can offer to you is that we are, remember, 70% of our budget is mandated by the state of New York. And if the state of New York doesn't provide us relief to restrict that spending, we would have to find the reductions in the remaining 30%. And those things that are not mandated by the state of New York are some of the things that you and I come to rely on, like snow plowing and 911 services and sheriff's road patrols and parks, and even mental health services fall within those non-mandated expenditures. But again, in accordance with the charter, it's my expectation and requirement to present the legislature a budget proposal as we get closer to October. This early retirement incentive will help us. I'll be having a town hall meeting with county employees tomorrow evening to explain the proposal and to answer some questions that they may have. So, Susie, that was a long answer to a short question, and I apologize. June is confused about outdoor gatherings. Well, June, so are we. So this is our read of, as it relates to outdoor gatherings, the state guidance is in phase 3, outdoor gatherings, social gatherings. These are activities that you and I engage in on our own, are to be held to 25 people. In phase 4, that is to increase to 50 people. Okay. The court injunction, this is a court decision, federal court decision related to religious events, seems to say that outdoor social gatherings cannot be capped and that individuals would have to engage in physical distancing. But that does not, however, mean that an outdoor gathering at a restaurant or in an event a venue or at a park can exceed the limits that are put in place for them, those businesses. I know that is confusing. It is confusing because the state took action, the court unraveled some of it, and it is still not clear what the final determination is. So our read of the court injunction is that if you or I are having some activity, you are to hold to those social gathering limits, 25 now, 50 in phase 4. However, if there's an organized gathering of some sort, a religious event or some organized activity, the court order does suggest that there is no limit if social gathering can be adhered to, if social distancing can be adhered to, and that I think is the distinction. We'll try to provide some guidance, but as of this moment, the lawyers in Albany have to tell us what they think is the final answer to that question. And I'm still trying to find out if there's any update on that. What about pools opening? Yolanda, I love that name. My grandmother was Yolanda. Pools are open. So municipal, any public pool permitted by the Department of Health is permitted to open. So pools at condominium associations, townhouse organizations can open. Pools at parks can open. Pools at facilities, even gyms. If the pool is accessible without having to make use of the rest of the facility, the pool can open, and we've been permitting these all along. So if you're interested in knowing why your pool's not open, you should really ask whoever the manager is of that pool setting. So it could be a municipal pool, city, town. It could be an owner organization, so a homeowners association. It could be a park like the Poughkeepsie Tennis Club or something of that nature. They are all permitted to open. They are permitted by us, the health department. We've been permitting them for several weeks, and and you should reach out to your organization to find out whether or not they intend to open their pool. Is the incentive extended to DCC employees? So CSEA employees at Dutchess Community College do qualify, I believe. I'm going to ask somebody who's sitting in this room to go get me that answer before we close today, but I do believe that I don't know that DUE, meaning educators, are included, but I thought DCC, Civil Service Employee Association employees, are covered. If you are a DCC CSEA employee, please ask about tomorrow night's town hall for employees, and we'll be able to get you on the call and provide you that information. I'm hopeful that I'll get you that update before we close up today. Mary Rose, why do shopping malls need filters before opening? Well, because the state of New York says so. That's the answer. What I would offer to you is that, again, traditionally, and this isn't even in the last several years, malls were highly populated areas. So they're almost like little villages, right? We would hang out at the mall. Yes, that still happens to a degree, but not so much as it once did. And so the concern that the state has is bringing a large group of people into close proximity for a long period of time would result in the transmission of the disease. There is not an example of that yet in the state, in the states that have the regional states that have reopened. I can't tell you. We have seen in southern states and the states that have seen an increase, in particular among younger people, that is occurring in bar and restaurant settings where there is close proximity and people are talking at and toward one another, and that, of course, has resulted in an increase in the transmission of the disease. We do not believe that mall settings pose a higher risk if they adhere to the same expectations that others have, which is limited capacity, no social, sort of gathering, certainly not food courts, not areas where you'd sit and sort of socialize. We would so as of today, the state is saying that filtration, some sort of filtration is necessary on the AC systems. Those HVAC systems are not different in shopping malls than they are at a Walmart or a big box store. The state needs to clarify that. We had a call with Department of Health professionals earlier in this week. We did not receive any information that was more than conjecture. I mean that sincerely. Commissioner Anil Wyden was on the call. We all asked some very detailed questions, and they were just offering opinion, not any science. And our position is that, again, if we're going to restrict activity, we should have the science to prove it or support it. We agree, and I agree, that there are settings, as I said, like bars, restaurants, and certain close environments where you're in close proximity that do cause transmission of the disease. We don't think that you couldn't get a mall operating, at least to access certain businesses, not as they once were, but at least to access certain businesses. We think that can happen safely, and there is not some indication that we're wrong in that. It's just an opinion. And I'd almost feel better if the governor just said, I've got a bad feeling about that, rather than sort of point to, this basic information that just is not yet supported by any science. And, of course, would be frightening to a degree, right? If HVAC systems are a problem or problematic in a mall setting, then they are problematic in just about every setting, and that is a concern. And by the way, they could be problematic in every setting. It's just a much lower risk transmitting the disease through an AC system. And again, that's from our own commissioner. I'm not providing any medical advice. It's just what we believe is factual at this point in time. Ellie asked her daughter, your daughter hasn't received her unemployment check. Who should she contact other than calling unemployment? Call your state legislator. Unemployment is administered by the state of New York, as you have likely heard over the course of time. We have asked the state to change the way that they deliver the unemployment benefits. They still have this system that is clunky, it is clumsy, and is overwhelmed. But state legislators have been advocating for individuals. So depending on where you live in Dutchess County, your state senator is either Sue Serino or Peter Harcum. Their offices are available to assist. Your state assembly member is either Kevin Cahill, Dee Dee Barrett, Jonathan Jacobson, Kieran Lawler represent you in the New York State Assembly, and those individuals are working to advocate on your behalf. To the individual who asked about the early retirement incentive, the Dutchess Community College Board of Trustees has to improve the incentive. So you would qualify if the DCC board, as co-employer, adopts the incentive, and that is on their desks to be considered. So that's the update on that. And I do want to acknowledge, after 6 years, Pamela Eddington, president of Dutchess Community College, announced her retirement. We're grateful for our partnership and work together on a number of issues, from the investment at the airport to expansion of services at Family Partnership Center, to Think Ahead, which is a major success in providing a college-level experience to individuals with developmental disabilities through our Think Differently initiative. I'm grateful to our partnership, our friendship, and her leadership of the campus these last 6 years, and wish Dr. Eddington great success in whatever will be the next chapter of her life. But wanted you to be up to date on that as well. If you have a question, we have a few more minutes. Just write it in the comment section below. We'll be happy to take a few more from you. How is Aaron? Excellent question, Aaron. How is the 14-day travel quarantine voluntary but could carry a fine? It's voluntary in that you're being asked to do it by the state of New York. I agree with you. It is only voluntary if you comply. So step one is you volunteer. That you self-quarantine for those 14 days. However, if you choose not to quarantine or self-quarantine, the state of New York reserves the right to make that a mandatory quarantine with a fine. So, ostensibly there is no difference, but I think that at the very least, we're all asking you to use your better judgment, adhere to the 14-day quarantine. Otherwise, the state of New York can take legal action based on the orders of these three state governors. For those of you who have been following along and certainly have been engaged in dialogue related to race relations and race-related issues, certainly across this country, we know in the murder of George Floyd that's sparked this great outrage, and understandably so, among so many people, regardless of color, but of course a renewed appreciation for the challenges, the obstacles, and the prejudice and intolerance that too many people of color experience on any given day. And as America strives to every day achieve its fundamental promise of ensuring that everyone is protected equally under the law, we are all sort of soul-searching. And what's occurred here in Dutchess County, I'm proud of the people who have organized protests in a way that have stayed safe. I'm grateful that you have been respectful of private property, of individual safety, and those in our community who may not agree with you. And we've had dozens of these. They've occurred in most locations. They've been relatively small events. People wearing face coverings, keeping socially distant. They've occurred online, people expressing their opinions. Dutchess County's law enforcement agencies, led by Sheriff Anderson and the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, immediately agreed to begin reviewing our policies. Under Sheriff Kirk Imparati has been leading the conversation with our Police Chiefs Association. Every police agency in Dutchess County wants to review their practices and make appropriate updates. In fact, they are moving aggressively toward expanding cultural competency and implicit bias training that the City of Poughkeepsie Police Department is engaged in. Dutchess County already has a very comprehensive training regimen that includes de-escalation, it includes continuum of force, it includes crisis intervention, mental health first aid, and there's a desire among all of the police agencies, and these are the police chiefs, to engage in a countywide effort to ensure that every law enforcement official, every cop on the street, every police officer on the street is engaged in implicit bias training. We're going to move together with them. Under Sheriff Imparati is leading that effort, as is Deputy Commissioner Ken Roman, on what is a holistic review of all of our law enforcement practices. These police agencies and their municipalities not only are required now by governor's executive order and a presidential order. President Trump issued an order that police agencies wanting to access federal resources needed to meet the accreditation standards that the federal government includes, which includes, by the way, crisis intervention, mental health first aid. So we are well ahead in achieving those goals. But we want to meet those expectations, but we also together will craft a collaborative, universal policy statement that adheres, that points to the training improvements, the initiatives that I've spoken of, and that these law enforcement agencies want to engage in. We are also, as part of this effort, engaging in a county-wide conversation. Now, we've had hundreds of town hall meetings these last 10 years on race, on issues related to race, crisis intervention, domestic violence, mental health, individuals with developmental disabilities, and the Human Rights Commission has hosted listening sessions. So we are hosting on July the 7th another one of those listening sessions. This is a listening town hall where we're encouraging individuals to share their experience as residents. We're being joined in partnership in hosting this, the Human Rights Commission, the NAACP, of Northern Dutchess, the Northern Dutchess NAACP, and Congressman Sean Maloney, all participating and co-hosting this event. Our moderator is Angela Henry, a wonderful woman who has engaged in these conversations in Dutchess, a member of our arts community, woman of color who I have a great deal of respect for, helping us to moderate. There'll be a number of community leaders, not elected officials, who will be given opportunities to kind of interact with residents to speak through certain issues. We're inviting you to sign up to speak. We're only doing this because virtually we have to manage it, so see the link online. You can sign up. You can speak for up to 3 minutes, offer your comments, your ideas, frustrations, concerns. For those who are pessimists, I know that you might, I've already seen some comments. Listen, it's important that we have conversation, and we're encouraging people to let's talk about the good and the bad, the concerns that we have, the opportunities that we've achieved, and the progress we've seen, and the need for new ideas, new initiatives, new concerns, and addressing progress that we still need to achieve. We're going to be joined by former Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, who grew up in Dutchess County. His family is still in Dutchess County, and he'll be sharing some of his experience and talking a little bit about what we can be doing together as a community. Every town, all 20 towns, all 8 villages in both of our cities will have their leadership on the call listening. This has never happened before. We are going to have every supervisor and mayor and or their representative on the line listening. This is not going to be elected officials talking at you like I'm doing now. This is going to be an opportunity for us to listen, to take notes, to take stock, to do a little soul searching, and to use this information and this dialogue as a way to inform us with decision making. And this is the right time to do this. This builds on the years of interaction we've had and the dialogue we've had, the advancements we've made. We've had town hall sessions with the Latinx community. Sheriff Anderson has hosted the Latinx community on a number of occasions to talk about issues of policing. We've had these conversations ongoing for the last 8 years, and this is just a continuation of that effort, but at a moment in time where it is right. So it is right for us to listen to one another. It is right for us to learn from one another, and it is right for us to challenge our sensibilities to do what's right for people, and that's what this is all about. So that's July the 7th at 5:30 p.m. Please sign up if you'd like to participate in that. Okay, Debbie, will we go into Phase 4 by the 4th of July? Right now, we still have to wait till July 7th. We're hopeful there might be some advancement, especially since some of the activities that were to begin in Phase 4 are being delayed so across the state. So right now, we're still Tuesday, July 7th. When will banks open for in-person transaction? Banks can choose to be open for in-person transactions, so you should reach out to your bank. There are several that are open, that their lobbies are open. You may have to call for appointments, or you may have to sort of wait to enter the building. But banks can open for activity now, and it's up to those banks to make those decisions, which is important. It is up to those banks to make those decisions. We are 5 minutes after 4, so we're going to round up just with a reminder that we are going to be with you again tomorrow at 3 p.m. We are then next week going to shift to once a week. So as we begin Phase 4 on Wednesdays, we're going to start likely around lunchtime, although we might alter that depending on need. But we're going to move next week to Wednesdays weekly to give you an update and to respond to questions. And we'll do that for the foreseeable future. We may transition. There are some other issues we're going to want to confront together. So at this point, we'll see you tomorrow at 3. And then we're going to move to just weekly, starting next Wednesday, weekly. And our telephone town halls will occur monthly. So rather than twice a month, we're going to move to just once a month, starting next week, this month. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. If you have additional questions, you can add your comment to the section below. Be happy to get you what answers we can. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, and be kind to one another.